In a city where social inequalities and racial prejudices are pervasive, Aisha, a black woman in her 40s, lives a modest life as a housekeeper in a wealthy neighborhood. One cold winter evening, after a long day of work, she makes a discovery that will change her life forever. While rummaging through a trash bin behind a luxury restaurant, Aisha finds an abandoned white baby wrapped in dirty blankets. Torn between shock and compassion, she decides to take the baby home with her. Aisha returns home with a heavy heart, gently carrying the baby in her arms. The night is dark and cold, but a spark of light in her eyes, brighter than the snow sparkling under the streetlights, guides her steps. She finally enters their modest apartment, hoping that the weight of this secret won't upset her already fragile life too much. As soon as she pushes open the door, she hears the familiar sounds of home, the crackling of the heater and the TV playing softly in the background. Her husband, Malik, is sitting on the couch watching a football game. He stands up when he hears her enter and approaches with a tired smile. "Aisha, you're home late tonight," Malik says, kissing her on the cheek. "And what is that you're holding?" Aisha hesitates for a moment, a mix of fear and determination in her gaze. She gently places the baby on the table and covers it with a clean blanket she brought. Malik leans in to take a closer look, his brow furrowing with concern. "It's a baby, Malik," she finally says, her voice trembling. "I found him in a trash bin." Malik freezes, incredulous. His eyes move from the baby to Aisha, trying to understand. "What? But why?" he asks, his voice tinged with confusion and anger. "Why did you bring him here?" Aisha moves closer to her husband, trying to calm his emotions. "He needed help, Malik. He was all alone, abandoned in the street. I couldn't leave him there." "But what are we going to do?" Malik asks, his voice hardening. "We're already struggling to make ends meet. And why a white baby? What will people say?" Malik's words are heavy with judgment, and Aisha feels a knot of anxiety form in her chest. She knows this situation will test their marriage and their relationship. "I understand, Malik. I know this is hard to accept, but we have to do what's best for this child," she says with determination. "I didn't want someone else to find him, someone who might not treat him with compassion." Malik looks at the baby, whose small eyes seem to fixate on the ceiling with innocent curiosity. He sighs deeply, his features softening slightly. "All right, Aisha," he says finally, his voice gentler. "We'll keep him for now. But we'll have to figure something out." In the days following the baby's arrival, which Malik and Aisha decide to name Nicholas, they face unexpected challenges. Though Aisha is aware of the difficulties ahead, she hadn't prepared for the intensity of the stares and whispers that would surround them and their family. On the first morning, when Aisha takes Nicholas for a walk in their neighborhood, she feels the weight of the neighbors' gazes. Women standing on doorsteps stop their conversations to stare intently at the stroller where Nicholas rests. The bravest ones dare to ask questions, their voices full of suspicion. "Is he your child?" asks a neighbor, her tone falsely casual but her gaze full of doubt. "Yes, this is Nicholas," Aisha answers calmly, feeling the weight of the unspoken judgments. Whispers follow Aisha and Malik wherever they go. At the market, vendors eye them warily, sometimes hesitating to serve them immediately. Customers whisper among themselves, throwing furtive glances at the couple and their baby. Aisha tries to remain strong, but every low murmured comment, every suspicious look, weighs heavily on her. One day, while returning from the grocery store, Aisha overhears a conversation between two of her neighbors. Hidden behind a wall, they speak without realizing she can hear them. "I bet they stole him. Who's ever seen a black family with a white baby?" one of them says, her voice full of mistrust. "It must be a shady story." "Maybe they're hiding something," replies the other. Aisha feels her heart tighten, but she continues her path, eyes fixed straight ahead. She refuses to let herself be defeated, even though their words burn in her soul. Malik, for his part, remains more pragmatic. He tries to calm Aisha's anxieties by telling her that time will silence the rumors, but he is not immune to the accusatory glances and harsh words. Despite the murmurs and prejudices surrounding them, Aisha decides to protect and raise Nicholas as her own child. She showers him with love, offering affection and tenderness that go beyond the color of his skin. For her, the true value of a family lies in love and support, not in appearance or societal expectations. The years pass, and Nicholas grows up surrounded by the love and protection of Malik and Aisha. Now 5 years old, he is a curious and joyful child, always eager to discover new things. With his tousled blonde hair and sparkling blue eyes, he stands out in the neighborhood, but it doesn't seem to bother him. For Nicholas, Malik and Aisha are his parents, and their home is his sanctuary. Nicholas begins to explore the world around him with boundless fascination. Every day, he follows Malik and Aisha everywhere, watching and imitating each of their movements with unwavering admiration. Whether Aisha is cooking in the small kitchen of the apartment or Malik is fixing something in the living room, Nicholas is there by their side, trying to replicate their actions with the same precision. One morning, while Aisha is preparing breakfast, Nicholas bursts into the kitchen, his little hands gripping a wooden spoon he found in the drawer. He proudly holds it up in front of Aisha. "Mama, I'm going to help you," he exclaims with a radiant smile. Aisha laughs softly at the enthusiasm of her son. She leans down to kiss his forehead before handing him a small bowl of flour. "Of course, my dear," she says tenderly. "You can start by mixing this." As they cook together, Aisha watches Nicholas with silent pride. Despite the stares and comments from some of the neighbors, she knows she made the right choice in raising Nicholas as her own son. Her determination to give him a home filled with love has never wavered, even in the toughest moments. Malik, for his part, has grown more and more attached to Nicholas. He sometimes takes him on walks to the park, where they spend hours playing with a ball or racing through the trees. Nicholas often imitates Malik, trying to walk the same way or repeat his favorite expressions. Malik can't help but smile when he sees how much Nicholas admires him. One afternoon, while they are all three at the park, a group of neighborhood children approaches Nicholas. They first watch him with curiosity, then one of them, older, suddenly asks, "Why are you playing with them? They're not your real parents, right?" Nicholas frowns, confused by the question. Malik, who has overheard, stands up and calmly walks toward the children. "Nicholas is our son," he says in a firm yet gentle voice. "No matter what you see, a family is so much more than the color of skin. It's love and respect that matter." The children, somewhat intimidated by Malik's imposing presence, eventually walk away, leaving Nicholas with his parents. Malik kneels down in front of Nicholas, his hands resting on the child's shoulders. "You know, Nico," he begins, "your mom and I love you more than anything. No matter what others say, you're part of our family. Never forget that." Nicholas, with his childlike innocence, smiles and nods. "I know, Daddy," he responds simply before throwing himself into Malik's arms. Aisha joins them, her eyes shining with emotion. She knows the challenges will only grow as Nicholas gets older, but she is ready to do whatever it takes to show him that the true value of a family doesn't depend on appearances, but on the heart. 10 years passed, and Nicholas was now 15. He had become a healthy, well-rounded teenager, and Aisha and Malik's family represented a safe and loving home for him. The societal prejudices that had once weighed on them had slowly begun to fade. Neighbors and people in the neighborhood had grown accustomed to Nicholas's presence, and some had even begun to accept him as one of their own. However, the question of his origins continued to haunt Nicholas as he grew older. At the age of 15, Nicholas found himself more and more confronted with questions he couldn't ignore. Why was he white while his parents, Aisha and Malik, were black? Where did he really come from? These questions were always present in his mind, even though Aisha and Malik had done everything to offer him unconditional love. One evening, while they were all sitting at the table for dinner, Nicholas took a deep breath and broke the silence. "Dad, Mom, I need to ask you something," he said in a hesitant voice. Aisha and Malik exchanged a glance, immediately understanding the gravity of what Nicholas was about to say. "Of course, my dear," Aisha replied softly. "What's bothering you?" Nicholas set down his utensils and looked at his parents with a determination they had never seen before. "I need to know where I come from. Why am I different?" Why is my skin white and yours black? A heavy silence settled over the table. Malik, who had always dreaded this moment, took Aisha's hand and turned to Nicholas. Nicholas, my son, we knew this day would come, he began gently. This is not an easy conversation, but you deserve to know the truth. Aisha felt tears well up, but she forced herself to stay strong for Nicholas. She took a deep breath before beginning her story. Nicholas, 15 years ago, I found you abandoned in a trash bin, in the middle of winter. You were a baby, alone and vulnerable. We didn't know where you came from, but we knew we had to protect you, love you, and give you a home. That's why we raised you as our own son. Nicholas listened in silence, his eyes filling with tears. He had always known there was something different, but hearing the truth was overwhelming. So, my biological parents, they didn't want me? He asked, his voice breaking. Aisha stood up and rushed to take Nicholas in her arms. We don't know why they abandoned you, but what we do know is that you are our son, Nicholas. We love you more than anything, and nothing will ever change that, she whispered in his ear. Malik stood up as well and placed a reassuring hand on Nicholas's shoulder. We don't know your biological parents, but we are your family. And we will always be here for you, no matter what happens. Nicholas, though shaken, felt a wave of comfort upon hearing his parents' words. He realized that, even though his origins were a mystery, the love he received from Malik and Aisha was real and unwavering. Days, weeks, and then months passed. Nicholas couldn't stop thinking about his origins, even though he did his best to live fully in the present with Aisha and Malik. However, an unexpected event came to disrupt this fragile peace. One morning, as Nicholas was returning home from school, he found an old man sitting in front of the house. He looked tired, his clothes worn, and he wore an old hat that partly hid his face. Upon seeing Nicholas, he stood up slowly and called to him in a trembling voice. Nicholas. Surprised, Nicholas stopped dead in his tracks. How did this man know his name? Who are you? Nicholas asked, wary but intrigued. The man smiled sadly and removed his hat, revealing a face marked by age and hardship. My name is Antoine, and I'm your grandfather. The shock of this revelation left Nicholas speechless. He was both incredulous and overwhelmed by a wave of conflicting emotions. My grandfather? But how is this possible? Antoine sighed deeply, his sad eyes fixed on Nicholas. It's a long story, my boy. A story you need to hear, if you're ready to listen. Nicholas, although disturbed, felt an irresistible curiosity. He opened the door to the house and invited Antoine inside. Sitting around the table, Antoine began to tell the story of Nicholas's biological family. He explained that his mother, Cécile, had been forced to abandon Nicholas due to family pressure. Her mother, Gabrielle, Nicholas's grandmother, was a proud and cruel woman who couldn't accept that her daughter had a child with a poor man, a simple street vendor. When your mother was wrongly convicted of a crime she didn't commit, Gabrielle saw this as an opportunity to get rid of you, Antoine said bitterly. She threw you away as if you had no value. But your mother always loved you, Nicholas. She never stopped thinking about you, even behind bars. Nicholas listened in silence, his heart heavy. He felt both anger and sadness. His mother had been separated from him, not because she didn't love him, but because she had been a victim of injustice. And now, where is she? Nicholas asked, hope in his voice. She's still in prison, Antoine replied with a pained look. But she'll be released soon. She served 15 years and 6 months of her sentence. She's looking forward to that moment, because all she wants is to see you again, hold you in her arms, and tell you how much she loves you. These words struck Nicholas to the core. He realized his life was about to change forever. But one question still burned in his mind. Why are you here? Why now? Antoine looked down, visibly ashamed. I was cowardly, Nicholas. I couldn't stop your grandmother from committing those cruel acts. But I've always watched from a distance. And now that the truth is about to come out, I had to find you, tell you the truth, and try as best as I can to right the wrongs of the past. Nicholas felt a storm of emotions surge within him, but he knew he had to face this new reality. "I want to see her," he said finally, with renewed determination. Antoine nodded, a faint sad smile appearing on his face. "We'll go see her together, my boy. We'll go together, and you'll discover for yourself who your mother really is." The next morning, Nicholas woke up with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. He had spent the night reflecting on his conversation with Antoine, his grandfather, and the heartbreaking revelations he had learned. His life, which he had thought was firmly grounded, now seemed on the brink of shifting into a new reality. When he went downstairs for breakfast, he found Aisha and Malik already at the table, talking quietly. Their love and devotion had always been an anchor for him, but that morning, he felt torn between loyalty to his adoptive parents and the need to know his origins. Summoning his courage, Nicholas sat down in front of them, his face serious. "Dad, Mom," he began, "I have something very important to tell you." Aisha and Malik exchanged a worried glance. They could sense that something important was unfolding. "What's going on, my dear?" Aisha asked, her voice soft but tinged with slight anxiety. Nicholas took a deep breath before continuing. "Yesterday, I met a man who says he's my grandfather. His name is Antoine. He told me things about my biological mother." The silence that followed was heavy with meaning. Malik squeezed Aisha's hand under the table, sensing that the conversation was about to take a difficult turn. "What did he tell you?" Malik asked calmly, though he dreaded the answer. Nicholas lowered his eyes for a moment, then spoke again. "He told me that my mother never wanted to abandon me, that she was forced to buy my grandmother, who couldn't bear the thought of her daughter having a child with a poor man, and that she's been in prison for 15 years, innocent. She'll be released soon, and all she wants is to see me again." Aisha and Malik exchanged a look filled with sadness and understanding. They had always known that this day would come, but they weren't prepared to face it so soon. "Nicholas, we knew your past would catch up with you one day," Malik said softly. "We never wanted to hide the truth from you, but we were afraid of losing you." "You never lost me," Nicholas replied, his voice full of emotion. "You are my family, no matter what. But I have to meet her, I have to understand where I come from." Aisha, tears in her eyes, stood up and embraced Nicholas. "We will support you, Nicholas. Whatever you decide to do, we will be there for you." Malik stood up as well and gave Nicholas a warm hug. "You're not alone in this, my son. We will go with you if you want, to meet your mother." Nicholas felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He knew that this quest for the truth would be difficult, but with Aisha and Malik by his side, he felt ready to face this new future. He looked at his adoptive parents, gratitude and determination in his eyes. "Thank you, Dad, Mom. I really want to meet her, but I also want you to be with me. Because no matter what I discover, you are my family, and I never want to lose you." The next day, they all set off to meet Antoine, ready to face the past together and build a future where Nicholas could finally reconcile his origins and his present. The journey to the prison was marked by palpable tension. Nicholas, Aisha, and Malik, accompanied by Antoine, crossed the countryside in silence, each lost in their thoughts. Uncertainty and excitement mixed as Nicholas prepared to reunite with his biological mother after so many years of ignorance and mystery. When they arrived, the prison loomed before them, austere and imposing, a stone fortress symbolizing the separation forced on Cecile. Antoine guided the group through the heavy security doors, and after a series of checks, they were finally allowed into the visitation area. They waited in a waiting room, Nicholas's heart pounding. Aisha and Malik were there to support him, their presence offering comfort in this emotional ordeal. Antoine, for his part, seemed preoccupied, aware that this meeting would be the culmination of many years of pain and regret. The door to the visitation room opened, and Nicholas saw a correctional officer leading another woman to the visitation table. Cecile, although aged by the years of imprisonment, still had a spark of strength and determination in her eyes. When their gazes met, Nicholas felt an immediate surge of recognition and tenderness. Cecile sat down, her gaze fixed, her eyes resting on Nicholas with palpable emotion. Antoine, with an encouraging gesture, invited Nicholas to sit across from her. The room was small and simple, but it now seemed filled with an immense weight, a mixture of hope and fear. "Cecile," Antoine said in a trembling voice, "this is Nicholas, your son." Cecile, tears in her eyes, reached out her hand to Nicholas. Her voice was filled with regret and tenderness. "Nicholas, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to leave you, never wanted to hurt you. I'm so happy to finally see you after all these years." Nicholas hesitated for a moment, then extended his hand to take hers. Their hands touched, and a wave of warmth and sadness washed over Nicholas. He looked into Cecile's eyes, trying to understand this woman he had imagined so many times. "Why?" he finally asked, his voice trembling. "Why did you abandon me?" Cecile lowered her eyes, a deep pain visible on her face. "I was pushed to do it, by my mother and the unjust circumstances. I was young, lost, and without support. I always loved knowing you were safe, even if it meant losing sight of you." Cecile's words were full of regret, but also of boundless love. Antoine, watching the scene, turned to Aisha and Malik, who had followed the exchange with silent compassion. "We always knew this meeting would be difficult, but I believe we're now seeing some form of reconciliation and understanding," Antoine said softly. Aisha, taking Malik's hand, turned to Nicholas, who seemed to find comfort in the presence of his biological mother. Though he was still shaken, he was beginning to perceive some clarity in the emotional chaos. "I want you to know, Nicholas," Cecile said, looking at her son with eyes full of tears, "that even behind these bars, I've always thought of you. All I wish now is for you to be happy and at peace." Nicholas nodded, his eyes filled with tears. He knew the road to healing wouldn't be easy, but this meeting was a first step toward understanding and reconciliation. "Thank you, Mom," he murmured. "Thank you for being here now." The visit ended with those words filled with emotion. As they left the prison, Nicholas, Aisha, and Malik all felt changed. They had faced the past and begun a path toward a future where family bonds could be rebuilt, despite the trials. Antoine accompanied them to the exit, and as they headed toward their car, he turned to Nicholas. "You took a big step today, my boy. Your mother will be released in 22 days. If you're ready, we can arrange another meeting so she can start rebuilding her life with you." Nicholas, looking at the horizon, turned to his adoptive parents and grandfather. He knew the road ahead would be long and full of challenges, but he was ready to face the future, with his extended family by his side, to rewrite his story and finally find the peace he had been seeking for so long. The day of Cecile's release finally arrived. Nicholas, Aisha, Malik, and Antoine were gathered outside the prison, anxious but determined. Cecile walked through the gates, her face marked by the years, but her eyes shining with a glimmer of hope. Nicholas stepped forward toward her, his heart racing. "Mom," he whispered, embracing her. Cecile broke down in tears, holding her son tightly, as if to make up for all the lost years. Aisha and Malik watched the scene with emotion, grateful that Nicholas had been able to reunite with his mother, even after so much time. "Welcome home, Cecile," Antoine said softly. "We're all looking forward to helping you rebuild your life." Cecile, her eyes still wet with tears, nodded gratefully. She knew that the road to reintegration would be difficult, but she felt ready, surrounded by people who were there to support her. Back at home, Cecile's reintegration into the family's daily life was a delicate process. Nicholas had decided to spend as much time as possible with her, wanting to make up for all the lost years. They spent hours talking, sharing stories of their past and imagining a future together. Cecile was slowly starting to rediscover a taste for life. However, not everything was that simple. The painful memories of Cecile's incarceration and the difficult life she had led resurfaced from time to time, causing moments of tension between her and Nicholas. There were unspoken words, deep wounds that couldn't be healed overnight. One evening, as they were all gathered around the table for dinner, Nicholas took a deep breath before asking a question that had been haunting him for a long time. "Mom, what really happened? How did you end up in prison?" Cecile lowered her gaze, her face darkening as she remembered that tragic event. It was a story of betrayal, lies, and power, she replied softly. I was wrongly accused of a crime I didn't commit. It was all orchestrated by my own mother, who wanted to get rid of me to erase what she saw as a shame. Nicholas felt a quiet anger rising within him. How could a grandmother do such a thing? But he also saw the pain in his mother's eyes, and he realized she had suffered far more than he could ever imagine. I believe you, Mom, he said softly. And I want to help you turn the page. In the following days, Nicholas, with Antoine's help, took steps to have his mother's case reopened. They knew it would take time, but they were determined to prove her innocence. Meanwhile, the family worked hard to create a new dynamic. Cecile and Aisha, after a hesitant start, began to bond. They spent time together, exchanging recipes, talking about their respective pasts, and learning to know each other as women who had overcome great challenges. Malik, for his part, grew closer to Nicholas, sharing with him his experience as a father and the challenges he had faced in raising a child who wasn't his. Their relationship deepened with this new mutual understanding, and Nicholas realized how loving and present Malik had been as a father, despite the difficult circumstances. Finally, after months of hard work, the truth came out. The charges against Cecile were dropped, and her name was cleared. It was a moment of relief and triumph for the entire family. As they celebrated this victory together, Nicholas spoke up. We've all been through so much, but what I take away from all this is that we are stronger together. We've built a family that, despite the obstacles, remains united. And I'm proud of each and every one of you. Cecile, tears in her eyes, kissed her son. Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you for giving me a reason to believe in a better future. Life resumed its course, but with a new brightness for Cecile. Her release not only marked a turning point in her personal life, but also in her business. During her imprisonment, her companies had been managed by a trusted associate, a man named Philippe, who had always believed in her innocence. Under his leadership, Cecile's businesses had not only survived but had prospered, reaching unexpected heights. Every month, Cecile received detailed reports on the state of her businesses, and she was astonished to discover how much they had flourished. One day, as she was reviewing the latest financial reports, an idea began to form in her mind. She turned to Nicholas, Aisha, and Malik, who were in the living room, enjoying a quiet moment. I've been thinking about everything you've done for me and for Nicholas, she said softly. You welcomed me with so much generosity and love, without ever asking for anything in return. And for that, I will be eternally grateful. But it's time for me to give back to you. Nicholas looked at her with curiosity, while Aisha and Malik exchanged an intrigued glance. Over the years, my businesses have prospered, and I've found myself with a fortune I never imagined, Cecile continued. I've made a decision. I want to give you half of my fortune, Aisha and Malik. You've taken care of Nicholas for 15 years, and I want you to know how much that means to me. You are the family I never had, and I want you to be able to enjoy everything life has to offer. Aisha brought a hand to her mouth, shocked. Malik, usually calm and composed, struggled to find his words. Cecile, this is incredibly generous, he stammered. But we never did this for the money. Nicholas is our son, and that's all that matters to us. I know, Cecile replied with a tender smile. That's exactly why I want to thank you this way. You've given Nicholas the love and security I couldn't offer him. This amount will allow you to fulfill your dreams, to do what you've always wanted without worrying about financial constraints. Nicholas, moved by his mother's decision, turned to Aisha and Malik. Mom is right. You've always given everything for me, and now it's our turn to give you what you deserve. After a moment of reflection, Aisha spoke up, tears in her eyes. Cecile, this is an invaluable gift. We accept it with gratitude, not for the money itself, but because it comes from you. It shows how much you care about us, and we are honored to be a part of your life. Malik nodded in approval. We will use this money to help those in need, just as we helped Nicholas. We want your generosity to spread even more love and support around us. Cecile smiled, moved by the response of her friends. She knew her decision was the right one, and that this act of generosity would strengthen the bonds that connected them even more. With this new beginning, Cecile set out to bring her businesses back to life. But this time, with a different perspective. She planned to focus them on social projects, supporting causes that were close to her heart, such as education and helping families in need. Aisha and Malik, for their part, used part of the fortune to create a foundation in Cecile's honor, aimed at helping orphan children and troubled youth, giving them the same opportunities they had given Nicholas. Together, they built a bright future, where love, redemption, and solidarity were the guiding principles. Cecile, finally free and surrounded by her new family, looked toward the future with optimism, ready to face the challenges ahead, strengthened by her past, but even more so by the unwavering love that united them all. This story reminds us of the importance of acceptance, tolerance, and the strength of love in building a family. No matter where we come from or the differences that separate us, it is kindness and humanity that weave the deepest bonds.